Hi, and welcome back to the series on the T on what it's like to be a Christian virgin waiting for marriage. In this episode, I'm going to be talking more about how my grandma Carmen, who when I was growing up was the epitome of a high-value woman in my family personally, and she helped raise me. I'm going to share more about how she taught me to live my life, comport myself, the type of one to be, and all that. And in this episode, I am going to be brutally honest as I possibly can, because what I've learned is that the men I respect in my family, the men I've respected outside my family, high value men do not mince words. They tell it like it is, and if you like it or you don't, they're still going to tell you the truth. Their self-discipline and not lying to themselves about their limitations, their assets, all those things, are how they develop and cultivate their lives, characters, all of those things. And my grandma Carmen taught me that the same goes for women. If you're not honest with yourself and you're not surrounded by people who are honest with you about your limitations, your, positive qualities, your good qualities, and the things you need to work on, that sets you up to be stuck in cycles. So this is the hard truth that I'm just going to share based on my own experience of being raised by my grandma, who was an it girl of her day, and honestly is still an it girl at 80 something years old. Number one, as a virgin, since I am a virgin, I understand that gives me a lot of options as a 24-year-old virgin girl who's waiting for marriage. And so there are men who have approached me, and this is not just my experience, but the experience of other women who were virgins who waited for marriage. These men would see virgin girls as their dream girls. And so it was not hard to find a man or to meet a man who, upon meeting me and getting to know me, my family background, all those things, saw me as wife material. This is the thing. 304 friends, women who have promiscuous past and sexual pasts they were not proud of, they instinctively know, and I've shared this in previous videos, that their sexual pasts mess up their options in the dating marriage sphere. And these women, no matter how sweet they appear, even if they're in the church and the sweetest Christian church girls, their awareness of this is so deep-seated that if you are a virgin girl who is committed to waiting for marriage, and if you're like me and you have a grandma and this is a value that's in your family, these ex-304s in the church, the ones who left behind their past and decided to try to re-wait for marriage and do things God's way, or the ones who aren't trying to re-wait and are just living their 304 lives doing 304 things, these women will resent you for exercising qualities that they don't understand because they never exercised them. So before my grandma Carmen moved away this year, her last instruction to me regarding the prospect of marriage was to be patient. Patience is a fruit of the Holy Spirit in Galatians 5:22 through 23. My grandma was a virgin until she got married. My grandma married at 21. She was patient for 21 years until God sent her the man who respected her dad, who was able to provide for her, who waited for marriage with her, and who treated her like a princess to the day he died and left her enough so that she hasn't had essentially to work since he passed away. So my grandma entrusted the selection of her spouse to God, and her criteria were that he was a man worthy of respect because he respected her, and the man who is my late Papa Reuben, my grandpa Reuben, respected her father. So this is what I learned. Right now, as it stands right now, I am happily single in terms of I'm a happy virgin being single. I'm happy with the fact that I never compromised my standards no matter how many fiery darts the enemy sent against my chastity, against my purity. I'm so happy that I can still stand here and before God and say I'm still a virgin waiting for marriage. And I know that by God's grace that's already done, right? But what I learned was that this generation of Christianity is full of liberal women. There are a lot of women, anytime that a woman decides to become promiscuous, the liberal part of society is going to protect that woman more than the conservative part. Because conservative men, the fathers, the sons, men in positions of influence in conservative spheres, they cannot stand promiscuous women. They look down on that like nothing else. And so anytime there is a 304, especially one who is in the church who has a hoe past, but she wants Christian girl benefits, pure Christian girl benefits while still being a hoe because she repented and now she wants to do things God's way. These women are some of the most calculated, conniving, nasty females you will ever meet. And my entrusting myself to these types of women who were around my age, some younger, some older, who were trying to be 304s while calling themselves Christians, that was the worst decision I ever made. They were jealous. They encouraged me to settle every single time I spoke to them. Their standards were low. Their criteria for their own relationships was based on very carnal reasons that had nothing to do with the Bible. They were going by confirmations that weren't from God, and they weren't listening to their dads. A lot of these girls were rebellious against their fathers, and they had a bunch of feminist mindsets that weren't in alignment with scripture. But when I would confront them about it, these women are so delusional, prideful, and have so many demonic spirits from their sexual past and from having engaged that way and opened the door to the enemy in that way, that when you as a virgin warn these women, you're in sin. Your mindsets are polluted by the enemy. You've been lied to. You took of the fruit and you ate it, and now you're paying the price for it. That's why you're seeing such bad fruit in your life. These Jezebels do not believe they have consequences, or if they do, they will do everything, even if it's just psychological, because they don't want to face it, to evade consequences. And because these Jezebels in the church cannot stand consequences for their sexual past, they will try to manipulate you and try to talk down to you as a virgin into doing the same thing they did, making excuses for whole behavior, making excuses to be immodest, making excuses to act like a 304 and a woman for the streets in the church, and still expect and feel entitled to a godly man treating you like a princess and giving you princess treatment, wifing you, and all those things, which in the Old Testament was a privilege reserved for women who were virgins until they got married. So what I learned through losing pretty much all my friends was that my grandma Carmen is the best friend that I've ever had. She gave me no excuses to be a woman for the streets. And when I struggled and when I thought that I was going to start listening to these 304s, my grandma made a decision. I'm tired of dealing with you and I'm leaving this house. Because of how low the quality of the women I was having as my friends who were in the Christian church were. They were all hoes, and my grandma hated all of them. And so this is what I mean. My grandma never gave herself excuses. She kept herself trim. She kept herself fit. She never let herself get obese in her, early days of marriage. And even now that she's a widow and doesn't even have a man to impress, she's still like, I'm not going to let myself look all tattered and old just because I'm the age I am. I'm a woman of God. I'm a woman of honor. And my grandma taught me, you are not to give yourself any excuses. If you decide to be a promiscuous woman, if you decide to engage with a man sexually outside marriage, do not expect a good man, because that's not it. So in the same way that my grandma held me to a high standard as a young woman, I also have high standards for myself in men. I understand that a woman like me, the type of woman that my grandma raised me to be, a man doesn't come by every day. And there are men who will try to neg you, either because they have money, influence, good families, or they're just desperate, or they think that because they're cute and they look good that they can pull any woman they want. And there are men who will try to neg you into compromise, neg you with negative words, manipulative words into thinking that you're being proud. But really, when you look at these men are trying to manipulate you a lot of the time into giving them sex outside marriage, lowering your standards, and the consequences that come with that. But the reality is, these men don't actually respect the women who bend to their manipulations. When there is a woman who lets herself get deceived by every dude on the block, who doesn't test any spirit coming to her in the form of a man, these men don't respect these 304s. If you want to be talked about like a dog by a man, take their advice in that regard. Take their advice and assume that by waiting for marriage and being a virgin with standards that you're not going to have sex until marriage, that you're going to keep your body chaste and treat it as holy and honorable. Watch these men and how they speak about the women who are too afraid of not having a man to deny that man sex until marriage. Watch how nasty these men speak about them. They have no respect for them because men understand that women who value themselves know better than to offer their bodies to men who don't value them. End of story. But that's the tea for today. If you are a woman who's giving yourself no excuses, then you have the right to give men no excuses. But the thing is, you have to be a woman who's given yourself no excuses. And the sad truth is that most women are not. And because they aren't, they will influence you also to lower your standards for yourself and thus your standards in men. The reality is, a lot of the 304s, they had such a hard time with patience. They were telling me to move on. They were telling me to forget what I was believing, like God says to me and stuff. They were telling me that if I was struggling with sexual temptation and not worry about it, oh, if you get off track, God will just forgive you and all that. Actions always come with consequences. And every time that you compromise in that way, you're compromising your fellowship with God. You're compromising the amount of generational blessings your children are going to have. Every single time you compromise sexually, you are compromising blessings for your generations, because the Bible said when God first created Adam and Eve, Eve was a virgin for her husband, Adam was a virgin for Eve. Eve wasn't a 304 who expected her husband to overlook her past. When marriage was originally created, Eve was pure to be blunt. And so women in this generation may not like to hear it, but I don't care. A lot of women, because of their bitterness about their sexual past, are trying to destroy the lives of young women who are virgins, who understand their value and who understand that no man who hasn't married you deserves your body if you're a virgin. End of story. And so the impatience of these 304s, they would encourage me to rebel against my grandma who told me, wait until you find the right man. Wait until marriage. Wait. Be patient. Because in my case, like, I had to be patient, but it produced good fruit. There were rewards. And my mom, and this is awkward to say, my mom, from the time I was a teenager, told me that I looked like the Duchess Meghan Markle. And I had someone from my grandma's church tell me that too. Meghan Markle married the man of her dreams, like, was it in her 40s, 30s, late 30s, something like that. And my mom and grandma adored how much I looked to them like Meghan Markle, so much that we saw her royal wedding to Prince Harry. Meghan married at a later age. She waited. I mean, she, of course, had that first marriage that ended in divorce. But when she found the one, she literally married a prince, the man of her dreams, and it happened later in life. Candace Owens is another woman. I share these specifically because they're black women. I'm a black woman. Candace Owens married George Farmer at the age of 30. And Candace Owens, these women are happy in their marriages. They're happy wives and moms. These 304s who are encouraging you to be bitter towards marriage, to be in fear of being in idolatry of marriage, and to just take anything you can get in dudes, these women are ruining other people's lives by refusing to be patient, which is literally a fruit of the spirit. So if you see a 304 around you being impatient and encouraging you to have no patience, guess what? That's not a woman of God, and she's leading you astray from holiness, honor, and all the things that dignity and all the things that biblical womanhood entail and include.